Thanks for watching. In the last video, I will link it right here. I unboxed the Arrma Kraton EXB. EXB means Extreme Bash. It also means that you get a fully upgraded chassis, but you do not get any of the electronics. So that's what we will be talking about in this video. It does not come with a clear body. So what I actually did is, in the last video, I decided that the stock body that comes supplied with, that it is actually too pretty to use. So you can see it over here. It is very detailed. It looks, I think, fantastic, and that's also why I just want to sort of keep this looking pretty. And I will be painting up a different body. I will be doing that in a future video. It also comes with a different set of wheels and tires, so that explains why there's a huge pile of tires sitting next to me. These are the D-Boots Copperhead tires. This is not a bad tire at all, but I want to have something that will also allow me to do some hooning on some tarmac, for example. And for that reason, I decided to shift to these Street Fight tires by Proline Racing. These tires, they're actually belted. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with ballooning tires or pizza cutters, whatever they become at really high speeds, because this is, of course, a performance vehicle with that chassis being completely upgraded. It sort of demands that you put some high power in it, and it also demands that you do some ridiculous driving with it. And for that reason, I wanted to have a belted tire. I also have some Badlands on order from Proline Racing. I will link to everything that I'm mentioning in the video description box so you can check it out. But for the reason of me also wanting to drive it on tarmac, I want to have something that kind of tolerates that type of use as well. And for that reason, this Street Fight tire is actually fantastic. I love the shape of these rims. I'm not sure if the camera will completely do that justice, but if not, I will also include some close-ups so you can have an even better look at them. To top this off, I used some Hex Adapters made in an aluminium or aluminum, wherever you're from. And that's also made by Proline Racing. So this is actually a 17mm hex with a 1/2 inch offset from the top of my head. And it will make sure that this will never ever strip out. It also makes it really easy to change out wheels and tires, and like having that hex bit, that most important bit, actually intact on your vehicle at all times. So it just makes for, I think, a bit more of a durable setup. These wheels and tires, they do come with a plastic hex, which is something that I put in a drawer. If you have the money to sort of like shell it out, go invest in some of these Hex Adapters, because in the long run especially, it will make a lot of sense to have something that is just a bit higher in quality. And then, well, nothing better than having an aluminum Hex Adapter. Let me just throw some of this garbage to the side as we sort of dive into what actually is the topic of this week's video, which is all of the electronics that I put inside this Arrma Kraton EXB. So I have been pretty busy trying to put this in and install all of this as clean as possible. One of the first things that I think we should mention is this green monster over here. This is something that you might be familiar with if you watch my channel for a couple of years already. This is a motor that I have used in multiple setups, but this is actually one of the first times that I'm going to use it in a censored setup. This is a Castle 1515 motor, 2200 kV. These perform fantastically well in any type of 8-scale setup. So no different in this case. This Arrma Kraton EXB is, I think, the perfect candidate to receive such treatment. I am running this censored, and that means that on a low RPM startup, you do not have any cogging, you don't have any of that initial jitter that you might be familiar with from brushless setups. I'm seeing when I read online, when I read on Facebook or whatnot, I see a lot of people being a bit apprehensive about running a censored setup in a basher vehicle, thinking that it will actually affect top performance on their ride. And it actually won't. If you have a full castle system, a full castle setup in your truck or in your car, it actually operates with something that's called Smartsense. And what Smartsense does is it does assist with having like a censored initial startup on your motor, and once it is up to speed and once it actually recognizes which direction it is rotating, it cuts off the censored sort of like override, and it just operates as any type of sensorless, brushless setup. So don't expect any negative effects from having your castle system operating in a censored way, because you just won't be able to pinpoint any of them, I think. Also, the moment where it cuts out from running censored to sensorless is something that you will not be able to detect. You won't feel like a sudden shudder in performance or whatnot, and it just operates flawlessly. Another thing that I'm using here that I have not used before, because this is actually something Castle came out with recently, is this Direct Connect. Direct Connect, it is one of the lamest names possible for a product, because what it does is it directly connects your ESC to your motor. So where previously you needed to have like a sensor harness to hook that up to your sensor cable, so you had a sensor harness coming out of your ESC and then a regular sensor wire going to your motor, and currently you have a Direct Connect which directly connects your ESC to your motor. If you do purchase one of these direct connects, I will make sure that there's a close-up of it. Don't be confused and thinking that there's something wrong with the white wire sort of like transferring itself from one plug to the next and then crossing over with one other wire, because that is exactly what in the past the sensor harness actually did. So to get rid of that, all of that is now built into one wire, making it a bit cleaner and a bit more tidy once you have everything put into place and once you have everything wired up. Another thing that I removed is the on-off switch. I really don't care to have an on-off switch on my system at all. So I just stripped the wires, solder those two together, put some heat shrink around and tuck the wire away, just so I have the cleanest looking setup possible. Another cool thing with this Mamba Monster X ESC is it doesn't just run vehicles of this size and of this weight without any problems, without overheating. It also comes with an aux wire, and that aux wire allows you to set up some different functions on any available channel on your radio if you run anything that has more than 2 channels. So in this case I'm going to set it up, I think, with a completely different throttle profile. But if you, for example, are familiar with running Castle ESCs in a crawler and you have your aux wire hooked up, that will allow you to, for example, switch your drag brake on and off, or to at least manipulate that on the fly, which I think is really cool, and it is a really unique, really handy feature. To set all of this up, because I am always sort of like playing around with my settings. In the past I needed to do that with a Castle link, hooking everything up to a laptop and thus being able to sort of like manipulate the graphs, but also do some readouts of temperatures and whatnot. And to avoid having to do that, to avoid having to take the lid off of this receiver box all the time, I also installed a Castle B-Link. And the Castle B-Link basically enables you to set up a Bluetooth connection between your ESC and your phone. And it also allows you, for example, to set up the internal BEC on this Mamba Monster X. There's an 8 amp built-in BEC, and that will allow you to run all of your other accessories at the maximum amount of voltage that it is, of course, rated for. So, for example, in this case, I'm running a Reefs RC steering servo. This is a Reefs Raw 500, and 500 indicates that there's actually 500 ounces of torque on 7.4 volts, which is an enormous number, and it will be plenty to actually get this Kraton EXB around the corners. Now, if I set up my Mamba Monster X ESC to actually put out that 7.4 volts, I will have the full ability of this steering servo under my fingers when I try to steer this Kraton EXB around the corners. 25 tooth spline on that steering servo, so it is a direct fit for this Kraton EXB, so you can actually just go ahead and use that aluminum servo horn that is already pre-installed and that comes with the vehicle, making this a really drop-in solution for your vehicle. To steer everything, I'm using this Lynx 4S. So this is one of my favorite radios, this HiTec Lynx 4S. It is really easy to set up. It is incredibly easy to link. It has a very very easy to understand menu, very easy to understand way of setting everything up and reading everything out. So this is by far one of the best radios actually that I've ever had. It's very ergonomical, very comfortable. It comes with a NIM pack, so nickel metal hydride pack ready installed that you can actually charge inside the radio. It also comes with a charger, everything that you need to actually get this thing going. And then to actually make sure that I can connect it to this vehicle, I got an additional Axion 4. If you wonder if it's called Action or Axion, it's actually with an X, so an Axion 4 4-channel receiver, so that will allow me to also program one of the channels to actually do some cool stuff with an auxiliary wire. I think that, I'm still really bad at muting my stuff. I think that covers most of the bases for today. I'm a bit sick, so I hope that that will soon pass, where my lungs are up at full capacity again, where I no longer have a cold and I'm fully capable to receive whatever fumes it is that I'm going to spray in the air from my aerosols in order to paint up this fantastically shaped body. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the box below. I always answer. If you have any questions or you wonder about some of the products that I used in today's video, go look in the video description box. I will make sure that there is links to absolutely everything. Another thing that I will link over there is a link to a video made by Razor RC from the top of my head. He has a really nice guide to shimming your diffs. I know that in the last video I actually mentioned that some of the diffs in the Kraton EXBs had some problems, and of course avoiding those problems or solving them immediately rather than a problem really being developed is advisable. So what Razor RC shows is that it's really easy to pull your front and your rear diff, to shim them, how to shim them. I needed, in my case, I only needed one tiny shim in the front just to get the slop out between the ring and the pinion gear, and I needed one shim in the back just to get the slop out between the spider gears. And when you open them up, you will also see that in the front LSD plates are installed. I chose not to install them in the back, so I'm actually just running shims in the back, but I did shim it correctly. I needed to top up the diff fluid just a tiny bit in order to get everything to be perfect, but in a vehicle of this size, in a vehicle of this stature, I think that pulling your diffs is something that you need to get comfortable with anyway, because these are vehicles, they're high-speed vehicles, high-performance vehicles, and they do require some maintenance over time. So familiarizing yourself with all that stuff while you still have a clean vehicle is, in my book, very much advisable. Also, just to give you a bit more of an appreciation and a bit more of an understanding of what it actually is that you have in your hands engineering wise. So don't let anybody tell you that having to shim a diff right out of the box is a deal breaker, because it's not. I actually think that that is something that you need to do anyway if you get something that is this fast or meant to be this fast. That's just a responsibility that you as an owner, I think, have. So understand what you're driving, understand how to maintain it, and understand how to use it correctly. Now, that was a whole lot of disclaimer over there. If you've not subscribed yet, please do. It's free. If you are subscribed, hit the bell. Very much appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Apparel, everything in the video description box. And I hope I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
We're back on.